Namaskar. Welcome to the 17th episode of Satya Samvad. Meteorology, the science of the atmosphere, is where the secrets of the climes are decoded, transforming complex patterns of air, water, and temperature into precise weather predictions that impact our daily lives. In Bharat, we have had indigenous techniques of meteorology that have helped activities from agriculture and trade to the building of civil society and military infrastructure since millennia. Acharya Varahamihira's seminal text, Brihat Samhita, illustrates the sophisticated understanding of atmospheric processes that existed in ancient India, while Acharya Chanakya's Arthashastra documents systematic measurements of rainfall and their implications for national revenue and disaster relief efforts. Methodologies for undertaking meteorology included the use of bioindicators and Panchang, the traditional Hindu calendar. And while we have come to an age of cutting-edge technological interventions for meteorological predictions, it remains fascinating to see the multidisciplinary approach of the Bharatiya people when it came to meteorology, even as the technical and scientific verifiability and reliability of these techniques must be studied closely in the modern context. To discuss all this and more, we have with us today Professor Vidyadhar Vaidya. We welcome you, Vidyadharji.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. So Dr. Vidyadhar Vaidya is a professorial member of the Department of Agricultural Meteorology in Agricultural University and also is on the National Governing Council of Vigyan Bharati. He's a technical expert in Indian knowledge systems under the All India Council for Technical Education, the AICTE, Government of India, and an executive committee member of the Gujarat Council of Science City, Department of Science and Technology, Government of Gujarat. So, Vidyadharji, weather has always been an intriguing natural element that impacts our day-to-day existence. Weather forecasting has been done since ancient times around the world, when cosmic patterns were analyzed. Today, we have come to the age of Doppler radars, radiosondes, and supercomputers. How do you see this journey in the Bharatiya context?
Yes. First of all, I must thank the organizer, particularly Mrutyunjay, to give me a chance to talk to you about the ancient Indian meteorology. That is, we can say Prachiyan Havaman Shastra. And personally, if I want to speak, I have started studying since last 30 years, from 1994. And my first publication in this ancient science came into existence in the year 2000 when my first paper appeared in journal Asian Agri-History. So I started with a group of persons who taught me this astrometeorology, though I was a student of modern agriculture meteorology. But I created my interest in this old science. And first of all, I learned from them the techniques which are mentioned in the literature. The most prominent literature is Varahamihira's Brihat Samhita. And on that one principle, I wrote my first paper in the year 2001. So I presented that paper in the conference, and that created some confidence in me. So from that study, what I want to say here that some techniques are given in the ancient texts. We want to see those texts with a proper understanding, and if we can use some data to validate those principles in practical use, so we can re-establish this science in a present context. So with confidence, I can say after studying it for last 30 years, definitely some principles are still valid, and we can use in operational mode. That we proved in Maharashtra. We prepared one calendar, Nakshatra Varsha. Then in Gujarat, we prepared Monsoon Research Almanac. So operationally, we can use those principles or techniques for the daily prediction of rainfall.
Right. And I think that's a very important aspect, which has been part of ongoing discussions around decolonization, of course. In our series, we have had discussions on mathematics as well as on geoethnography in the past. Many of these techniques that you're mentioning about were often either lost or forgotten or even distorted over the centuries. particularly in the colonial period when Bharat was, well, for lack of a better word, exploited for its natural resources and labor. And it has been shown that colonialism has impacted climate security with the displacement of indigenous populations around the world, such as in Australia, and the traditional land and forest management practices. The loss or distortion of Bharat's indigenous techniques of meteorological predictions, along with colonial apathy, may have exasperated the tenuous balance of an ecosystem that had borne the brunt of imperialism and profiteering for centuries. What do you see as the primary reasons for this loss and distortion, and how did this degradation impact the reliability of these indigenous methods as we know them today?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, when I was working in Pune, in one of our seminar in the year 2002, there was a very interesting research paper which was read in our vernacular language Marathi. And that person was a retired agricultural officer, and he toured the tribal area of Maharashtra. And during his career, he has collected several principles or concept behind the rainfall prediction. And also, he studied the local beliefs or traditional technique of rainfall prediction. And while reading his paper, he particularly mentioned that there was a independent rural economy, or we can say independent or self-reliant village. In that, there was a Bara Balutidar system. What does it mean? Bara Balutidar, there are different professions. The persons are living in the village and they used to supplement each other. And a lot of time there was a barter, not exactly money. And one person is Gram Jyotishi. Now it is known as Gram Joshi or Joshi. What he does, he used to prepare observation-based calendar. The principles they are mentioned in the Parashar Samhita or Varahamihira's Brihat Samhita. Based on that, he took observation, he calculates on astrological basis, and he prepare a one panchang, and particularly Mediniya Jyotish type, which contains the rainfall prediction, the natural calamity, and political one. So he prepare, and on the day Varsha Pratibhada, he used to tell to the farmers or all villagers they are coming together, and in New Year day, Varsha Pratibhada, he used to tell all that. That is Panchang Vachan Paddhati. But that system was broken after the British period, and they want to centralize each and everything. So local Panchakroshi based system was totally disturbed, and still the Panchangs are made in every part of our country, and they are being popular in the local community. But that village level contact or village level communication is lost somewhere, and the Britishers already they established the Imperial Meteorological Organization, and then later it becomes India Meteorological Department. So that kind of system they have developed, but it is totally centralized. And you have rightly pointed out that colonialism or that mentality has affected the independent meteorological system which was established by our forefathers.
Absolutely. I think the disconnect with the ground, when we talk about deracination or uprooting of civilizational aspects and nuances, I think that is the first thing which happens in any colonial project or exercise the world over. Now, when you're talking about this, the indigenous methods that were there within various parts of the country, even in, I mean, you have many villages and, parts of the country that you have personally kind of worked upon, you know about. What is very interesting is the interdisciplinary aspect of ancient Bharatiya meteorology that can be seen with the use of bioindicators for weather forecasting. You have spoken for the Bhaum method, where occurrences such as the number of seeds in the fruits of the palash tree indicating humidity levels, and even curious ones such as sparrows bathing in dust as an indicator of good rain, show a unique way to determine weather conditions. Can you tell us a little about this, especially with regards to the scientific rationale behind some of these methods that were indigenously developed?
Yeah, very good question. So basically, there are three types of method of rainfall prediction, which was mentioned in a text. You try to call it about as a Bhauma Paddhati. Bhauma Paddhati means bioindicator based. So, based on the animal behavior and plants, the prediction can be made about the rainfall. So, there are several references for that, particularly when the group of sheep, we can say herd, which gathers together, head in the between, so which indicate immediate rain. Likewise, there are several indicators like the red ant. They make movement along with their food in a row, and they are hurriedly. That is one indicator. There are several indicators, and also there was a golden shower tree. If flowering, full bloom of golden shower tree is there, Amalta. The rainfall, the onset of monsoon will be after 45 days. So that kind of several beliefs, they were heard by people. And in one of the study made in the Junagadh Agriculture University, Professor Kanani published a paper and he tested several beliefs. So based on the full flowering of this Amaltas, he predicted that for 9 years consecutive. Out of 9 years, the prediction, the date of actual rainfall occurrence and prediction of onset, there was a difference of 3 to 7 days. So that kind of thing we can study. So likewise, there are several indicators. In one of our study in Barshi, we studied the 17 symptoms of rainfall conception. This theory was given by Varahamihira in Brihat Samhita, and we tested those hypotheses and continuously we took reading for 10 years from 2004 to 2014, and we found very good results. So particularly if rainfall cessation of rainfall, then dragonfly comes, that is Chatur.
Right.
So also, there are several this thing like you mentioned that seed the palash. So it directly related to the humidity levels and which indicate the occurrence of rainfall. Particularly bioindicators, they are useful in immediate rain. That is Sadhya Vrishti. So 2-3 hours up to 12 hours like that, they are more prominently being used. These techniques.
Right. And that's a very interesting point that you mentioned out there. One wonders, because in the Indian knowledge systems, we have had various aspects of reductionism and holism. We have had places where the constituent principles and the tattvas, as we call it, and the gunas, the qualities, kind of come together. Now, one wonders, when you're talking about these bioindicators and the various meteorological phenomena, whether there has been an extensive and comprehensive survey of constituent principles and the reasons why these correlations take place in the first place.
Yeah, that kind of study was undertaken by Dr. K. Ravi Shankar, a scientist working in Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture, Hyderabad.
Okay.
And after surveying these things, and he studied that, and he prepared one table of how these bioindicators are helping the local farmers to predict the rainfall. And from those interviews and all that study, he could find some relationship between that. And those indicators he listed out. There are also two authors. One is Golakia, and another one is a Trivedi, sorry. So he has collected 500 beliefs or 500 principle, we can say, about the prediction of rainfall or prediction of no rain or drought, like that. So likewise, bioindicator, we can separate it out and we can found some relationship. Also, I heard about some forest officer, very senior forest officer in Maharashtra, who has extensively studied these principles. And one of his autobiography, he wrote all these principles. So if you go to every part of India, you will find such kind of person who are locally studying these principles and they are using it for their own benefit or their village benefit about the rainfall occurrence. But as I said, these bioindicators are generally used for a short range forecast. So up to 2 days, maximum up to 2 days. This prediction is there. Only that golden shower tree or one long range forecast principle is also there, that at what height particular bird, weaver bird, make a nest. That is
Right.
there. So that kind of principle they are using. But generally from operational point of view, these bioindicators are indicating the immediate trends.
Right. And looking at the systems approach and trying to see the correlation at a broad level. And you mentioned about the short term, the short scale of the temporality of these indications. Now, moving from bioindicators to non-bio indicators, there has been work on the observation of the sky, of course, specifically factors like cloud formation and halos around the sun and the moon, as having been used for weather forecasting. Selected traditional beliefs based on non-bio indicators from the Bharali Vakyo in Saurashtra have been found to be accurate in predicting rainfall as well. Have yourself worked on some of these methods and shown them to be forecasting more accurately than astrometeorological methods, modern methods like synoptic method of short-range forecasting, or even by location-specific numerical weather prediction method by using supercomputers. Could you tell us a little about this, especially with a focus on what explains the methodological efficiency and scientific accuracy of the stated methods over and above the mentioned techniques that we use today?
Yeah, very good question again. So it is a second method that is known as Antariksha Paddhati. It was mentioned in the literature, and Varahamihira has wrote full chapter on how to take reading, from which period to which period reading should be taken. So from Margashirsha Mas to Vaishak Purnima, we can take this Antariksha Paddhati reading. And when we studied it for Barshi in Sholapur district, we studied it for 10 years continuously, and we took 17 symptoms observation. So out of these 17, only 3 are the bioindicators, and all other 14 are Antariksha Paddhati, that is atmospheric observation. When we studied this and we wrote one research paper on that, the accuracy percentage of this technique, we termed it as a RCRD. What is RCRD? Rainfall conception and rainfall delivery. There is a Garbhadharana and the falling of rain. So there is a distance between Garbhadharana and rainfall is about 13.5 paksha in our ancient timeline. In modern context, it is about 195 lunar days. And for calendar days, it is 192 plus minus 1 day. So by applying this principle, we can predict a local prediction. Varahamihira mentioned that the accuracy of this prediction will be to the radius of Panchakroshi. And he also in one shloka told us that if you find simultaneously 5 indicators, so the range of this will be 100 yojan. Then if it is 4, then 50 yojan. If it is 25, likewise up to 12.5 yojan, if only one indicator is there, 1 yojan is around 14 kilometers. So likewise, he has given this principle, and operationally we used it in our study, and we found that among these 17, the 4 most prominent one was the color of sky during sunrise, particularly 15 to 20 minutes before sunrise, and during sunset, 15 to 20 minutes after sunset. If the sky becomes blood red color, particularly shade is there, so that is a definitely sign of rainfall conception. Also, there is a halo around moon, halo around sun, then appearance of the rainbow. So likewise, we listed these 17 symptoms, which was mentioned in several literature. In our study, we found the reference of RCLD in at least 14 to 17 books. They are written in original Sanskrit text and also in regional language also. So those principles we used for predicting the daily rainfall. And of course, the results are, we are predicting daily rainfall based on observation as mentioned by Varahamihira. And this accuracy is average 80%. So average 80% accuracy, and if you are predicting 6 months in advance, 6.5 months in advance, no technique can assure you such kind of accuracy. Even when I used to work with the NCMRW project, that is Experimental Agromet Advisory Services, in that we used to analyze the results of this numerical prediction. Also, they provide the location specific forecast. And for particularly rainfall, the accuracy range 60 to 65%. But here in this technique, we found 80%. So that is very emerging result, and we tested it for only single year. Continuously for 10, 12 years, we monitored those indicators. And from that classical study, we established that RCRD technique is very reliable, but only we have to take the observation. Also, in modern times, the observer used to take the reading observatory. If we combine these observations with regular observations, we can have a additional data and we can have correlation between the modern parameters and the parameters they are mentioned in the text. So definitely this RCRD technique is very promising one and it is proven.
One wonders, I mean, because these texts have been written, quite a while back. I mean, given the changing atmospheric kind of conditions and occurrence of various kinds of suspended particles, the gaseous formations that have lately come about. What are the variations, if any, that you have seen in the comparative study between what was spoken of in the texts themselves and what you have seen in the modern implementation or the application of those or those insights, so to say?
Actually, exact basic physical principles we didn't study in deep, but some studies we can say when we studied ancient text in Ramayana, one shlok was there in which it was mentioned that due to sun's energy, the water gets evaporated from the oceans, and this water vapor goes up. They form cloud. So the sun rays they hold this water vapor and they spread in the atmosphere. That kind of mention is there.
Right.
It remains there for more than 6 months. That is mentioned. So whatever we know is there is a large amount of sea there. And in modern studies also, monsoon originates in the southern hemisphere. When it travels to our mainland, of course, it is in the winter. So from winter to summer monsoon, this period is around 6 months. So whatever evaporation from the sea water is there, those water vapor, they are going up on the upper layers. They are held by this and they indicate by these signs, symptoms. If we record these symptoms, because all the basic physical principles we cannot explain it to common person. That's why our Rishi told it in a uh, symptom-wise manner, not exact principles explained. But we have to interpret those principles. And our modern studies also suggest that there is a difference of 6 months from monsoon origin in the southern Madagascar, particularly. When it travels to our Indian mainland, the period is 6 months. And also during this period only, we observe these symptoms. So there is, of course, because since this method is very accurate, it gives more than 80% result and that too 6.5 months in advance. So definitely some physical principles are involved in it. We have to explore those with modern instrumentation and collaborative study with the ancient and modern meteorology.
Right. Absolutely. I think the correlation is very important, as is the verifiability, as we began the discussion on. There seems to have been a third method, the mathematical method of indigenous weather forecasting. This was often based on planetary charts, particularly the place of each planet and its angle with reference to other planets, using parameters such as conjunction or yukti, opposition or pratyuti, parallel declination, which is krantiyuti, and kranti pratyuti as well. You have mentioned that planet position indicate possibility of high wind speed damages as well as variations in temperature. You've also mentioned in one of your works that when a major planet changes a Rashi or a zodiac, it causes momentous meteorological events. Given our modern understanding that atmospheric fluctuations are primarily Earth-centric and how interplanetary effects could or could not affect these fluctuations in a significant way, especially with regards to wind formations, could you please tell us how planetary movements could directly and appreciably affect these phenomena?
Yeah. Third method is a Divya Paddhati, that is mathematical one. So based on the planetary position, we used to study the different aspects. That is the way the angles they are made with each other, particularly one planet with the sun, one planet with the moon, and between themselves. So this combination we used to study, and yuti, that is conjunction, that is 0 degree difference. Then pratyuti means 80 degree difference. Then krantiyuti means declination, having same declination on the say northern part of the ecliptic circle. And if northern part angle and southern part angle is same, that is kranti pratyuti. Particularly in my study, I use these four parameters, that is Yuti, Pratyuti, Krantyuti, and Kranti Pratyuti. But also there are another three aspects they are mentioned in the Panchang, that is Trikon Yog, Chaukon Yog, and another one Yog. That is, they are mentioned. So all if we combine together, because only when I used four parameters and I used 10 planets, then it becomes 180 combinations. In my PhD work, I used these 180 combination and found out the planetary aspect for start of two methods, then wet spell, then heavy rainfall, that is 100 millimeter and above, and then withdrawal. So in my PhD study, I found out the planetary combinations which are responsible all for all these five things for particular station. So from the reverse engineering point of view, we can find out the dry spell, wet spell, start of rain. These dates we know. And also we know the planetary aspect of particular date. So we can find definite correlation, and one method I evolved from my PhD thesis, that frequency analysis. And the most prominent planetary aspect we can find for every, already there are certain principles they are given. In one of my literature survey, I found out around 35 rules of planetary aspect which are responsible for wet spell or rainfall. So likewise, I also compared those along with these 180, and I found that we need to evolve certain new planetary rules or planetary aspect rule for the rainfall occurrence at the location. So that kind of study we can do for every state. I have done it for Gujarat, but every state can be done if we get the data of at least 30 and more years. This method is definitely they are affecting. And also in literature, I have studied it for rainfall, but for other parameter also, like the heat wave, cold wave, and also the winding, particularly mercury. Mercury is responsible for more wind. Certain aspect of the particular planet, they are increasing the temperature. Certain aspect of the planet, they are decreasing the temperature. So likewise, some they are mentioned, but we have to study and we have to correlate this aspect with the actual weather data or past weather data.
Uh, but sir, I mean, the point which I am curious about is because Mercury and the various planets, I mean, of course, there are solar flares which have an impact on the magnetic as well as the temperature-oriented aspects. But in terms of the planets that are out there, the effect on the atmospheric aspects is not all that significant as such, as much as the intraplanetary, or you could call it the Earth-centric fluctuations or variations have an impact. So I'm wondering how the correlations, if you were to talk about the physical principles or the manner of, the correlations actually being established, how can we think about that?
We have to study not in a perfectly mathematical way, that is exact correlation, not like that. Some event is there, we have to find out frequency, how many times these principles are coming. Particularly, I will give you example of moon. Moon is having aspect of every planet at least one time in a 27 days, because moon revolves around whole 360 degree in 27 days. So
Yes.
moon is a fast moving planet. We consider it as a planet, though it is a satellite of Earth. So particular combination of moon with these planets, they are showing effect. Particularly for rainfall, if Venus is there, if moon is aspecting with Venus, definitely there is a rainfall occurrence. If moon is aspecting with this Guru, the reverse effect is there. If it is aspecting with Saturn, so all these aspects they are given in the literature. We have to find out those references whether it is true for present data. So in my study, I have found out certain principles, and you will be surprised to know, particularly for the heavy rainfall, 100 millimeters and above, found out some relationship of the slow moving planets, particularly Pluto, Neptune, like that. And exact physical principles we have found out, but presently the data suggests that this kind of principles we can suggest. And operationally, all Jyotishi, they are using these principles, though it was written in the ancient text, or from his own experience. So every Panchang prepares, the person who prepares Panchang, particularly Mediniya Jyotish, he applies his own principle. Solving the Kundal is nothing but find out the aspect, particular for day, what are the aspects. So from that, his own reading, he used to tell whether it will rain or not. But what I have studied that for 60 locations of Gujarat, I found out the planetary aspects for start of rain, wet spell, the very heavy rainfall, and withdrawal of it. So those study I have taken, but as you suggested, the deeper study we can make. Particularly, if I give you the example of moon, the low ebb and tide is totally controlled by moon's gravitational forces.
Yes.
So
Yes.
likewise, there may be some forces which we didn't know presently. Some forces may be there, but definitely they are affecting because the effect of Mercury is seen on the increase of wind speed.
Yeah.
One scientist was there. Fortunately, he died a few years back. Shri Venugopal, who worked in Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. He wrote one research paper and he studied the 100-year cyclones over the Indian, that is the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. And he found out the effect of planetary aspect on those cycles. And he has made some conclusion that some planetary aspects are definitely responsible to occur these major cyclones in Bay of Bengal. So likewise, those studies we can take.
Very, very fascinating. I think so. Basically, we are at a phenomenological framework. And there is obviously more that can be done in terms of the principles behind the various correlations that we have seen as such. When speaking of the Panchang or the almanac, as it is called, as a basis of prediction or probable dates of rainfall, you speak of the first principle being that when the sun and moon are in a neutral asterism, there will be winds. When they are in a feminine asterism, there will be lightning and phosphorescence. And when the sun occupies feminine asterism and the moon has a masculine asterism or vice versa, there will be rains. We know of the ebb and flow of tides, as you just mentioned, due to solar and lunar movements. But how do we explain these other phenomena as mentioned? Also, what do you mean by the feminine and masculine aspects of asterism? Because asterism in modern astronomy specifically refers to observed patterns or groups of stars in the sky.
Yeah. You have asked me question about the astrology. There is a difference between astronomy and astrology.
Right.
Astronomy is the study of planetary position, its movement, all that, and impact of these movements and planetary aspect on the physical thing that is known as astrology. Particularly, we are well aware about the quality of individuals because that part of astrology is very much explored. And all Jyotishi, 99% Jyotishi do this. They are predicting about the various events of the human being based on the Janma Kundali. So similarly for rainfall or different aspect, we can study those. And these principles are taken from the some astrological books, feminine and masculine, because based on the Pancha Mahabhut, the presence of this Pancha Mahabhut of that particular nakshatra is a group of stars that we know, and there is one Yoga Tara every nakshatra, and the distance from Yoga Tara is measured about the position of that nakshatra. So they are far away, no problem. But all our 360-degree space is divided into 12 Rashi and 27 nakshatra. So these nakshatra have given certain characteristic. So that's why there is a classification of masculine, feminine, and neutral. So based on that, when sun and moon takes position of that particular nakshatra, how they are impacting each other. If sun is in the male and moon is in the female nakshatra, definitely there will be some rain. If they are of the neutral, they are having different effect. So these are the applied principles. They are mentioned in the books of astrology, and they are used by these astrometeorologists for predicting the rainfall. So exact physical principle we have to explore, but these are always they are explained in the textbook of astrology.
Right. So there's a phenomenological aspect again, and we're looking at the fundamental, the moorings or the foundations that. Rainfall, you just mentioned about rainfall. It has been, of course, key to the sustenance of humanity, since times immemorial. More so earlier when this was a primary source for, let's say, irrigation, of farmlands and various other uses for humanity. The Brihat Samhita devotes 8 chapters to discuss rainfall, including measurement and forecasting. So what were the principles specifically of rainfall predictions in indigenous weather forecasting techniques of Bharat? And given the variations in precipitation levels and patterns, we are currently seeing, there are many places where there's a deficit of sorts and others where there is, an excess. How can we establish the relevance of these techniques when we consider aspects of modern climate change and global warming?
Yeah, very good question. When I have studied this text, and then I got some references. First reference of a long-range prediction was given Parashas Krushi Sukti, Parashas Samhita, where the all Panchang-karta use this method, particularly when Samvatsara Prarambh, that is Varsha Pratipada is there. They put up a kundali of that particular time when sun enters that is Varsha Pratipada is there. Sun enters in this nakshatra. So Ashwin nakshatra, sorry. So this particular kundali they prepare, and from that they decide what is the ruling planet. Also, what is the minister planet. He has given certain principles to quantify the seasonal range. So that kind of principle generally they are being used in the traditional Panchang. But Varahamihira has certain different principles for predicting seasonal rainfall. He put one principle in his Prashana Adhyaya, and he says that, principle says that after Jyeshta Shuddha Purnima, that is Vata Purnima, we can say, after Jyeshta Shuddha Purnima, the first rain or rainy day occurs on that day, which Chandra Nakshatra is there. Based on that Chandra Nakshatra, divided 27 nakshatra in 10 groups, and he has assigned certain values starting from say 250 millimeter in recent units up to 1600 millimeter, and 10 groups. That distribution is not same. All 27 nakshatra they are unevenly distributed. So for particular class interval, he has assigned only one nakshatra. For particular class interval, he has assigned 7 to 8 nakshatra. So likewise, he made it look like a different kind of distribution. When I studied it in detail in my PhD work, I used 50 years data, and I was surprised that still these principles can be used operationally, because Varahamihira has given this principle based on the actual observation, not on only mathematical calculation.
Right.
Because we know rainfall is variable, and based on the first rainy day after Jyeshta Shuddha Purnima. Also, you should remember here, Jyeshta Shuddha Purnima doesn't occur on particular single date, not on 1st June or not on 7th June. It varies every year.
Right.
So based on that, if you take the observations and first rainy day, and if you check the Chandra Nakshatra of that and apply, we prepared a ready-made table. Of course, the shloka was given in Drona. We convert it into the modern millimeter unit based on the paper written by H.V. Balkundi. And in that, he says that one Drona rainfall is 6.4 centimeter. So we convert it into our modern day units. And I have validated for 16 stations for 50 years data. And I found error of only 8%. For 50 years, 16 stations, 8 years, 8%. So still it is accurate. If you go station wise, out of 16, there are 4 stations whose individual error is less than 10%. And I'm not talking about data, 50 years data, large data of all Gujarat. And also, there was one inference was given in the paper by Iyengar, and he found it that where the rainfall coefficient of variability is about 35 to 40%, the Varahamihira's principle is quite fits well. Similar kind of observation I found in Gujarat. In Kutch, there was a very less rainfall, around 250 millimeter. In Dang Valsad, the rainfall is more than 2500 millimeter. So in extreme cases, this principle doesn't fit because Varahamihira lives in near Avanti, that is Nagari, and
Right.
from Ujjain till Jaipur, the stations arriving in those, the variability which is of the middle part, 40%, these principles are still active. And I checked it for Gujarat and I found it excellent results. Also, after my PhD 2022, operationally, I tested this principle. And when I predicted for Anand location, the prediction was around 1050 millimeter. And it was around 21st or 22nd June when the first rainfall occurred after Jyeshta Shuddha Purnima. And by observing Chandra Nakshatra, my prediction was 1050 millimeter. But in June month, there was no rainfall. So everybody was very worried about the rainfall. But I was quite confident. And also, I took observations for all 60 locations and I
Right.
predicted above normal rainfall for 2022 and it occurred in a similar intensity. So in recent years also, we can have a prediction of that to 2022 or likewise this year also I will check the data and for 2024 also I can find out. For individual location, we can apply this result if you have a 30 years data, daily rainfall data. So you can use this principle, which is observation based and very useful result is there. And we can have a seasonal rainfall prediction. So this technique is very simple, observation based. It doesn't need a lot of calculation, but still it is very useful in present also because Varahamihira was born in year 505 and he lived up to 2080. Sorry, 580. So after 1500 years, so his principles are still true. He devote 8 chapters for rainfall. So for that different principles he has given, and for this principle only two shloka was there, and based on that shloka we can have a prediction for seasonal rainfall.
So that's very interesting because you mentioned about the repeatability, applicability of those techniques at the moment. One wonders that historically there have been devastating floods and droughts in recent centuries. You mentioned about the role of movements in prediction of flood drought occurrences with the Panchang-based model. So when we talk about preventing damage, when it comes to the major occurrences, for instance, in 1871, if I'm not mistaken, there was a prominent flood in Bihar. There have been a few famines as well as droughts in the eastern belt, especially in Bengal, for instance. So how do you contextualize the presence or the absence of these indigenous models, given that we started with a discussion on the colonization project? In terms of alleviating the stresses or the damage that these occurrences did to society as such?
Yeah, definitely, it's a good question. Because this continuity was broken after Britishers came. This continuity
Yes.
was broken, and these indigenous myths were neglected. Though still the tradition of Panchang is still there, but it was not in a common use, we can say, or policymakers don't look at. So there
Right.
was a system prepared by British in that case. So they look into this problem in their own physical principles way, modern science way. Definitely, these techniques are neglected during that period. We have to revisit those principles. And if we apply all these three methods, Divya Paddhati, that is mathematical one, if we can prepare a software about the flood years or all that seasonal prediction, then we can have a day-to-day prediction also, seasonal prediction also, and also 1 or 2 years in advance we can predict based on the planetary movements. Observation based, at least 6.5 months. And based on bioindicator, we can have a short range forecast. So by combining all these three methods, and also one of the major say merit of this method is that it can give a location specific forecast. Particularly by these the symptoms, RCRD theory gives you prediction about in a Panchakrushi, that cluster of 3 4 villages. So that is more useful for the local people. But we have to take observations in a more decentralized way. And
Right.
we have to interpret that data. Also, if experts come together, they can prepare a calendar, because in Gujarat, we prepared calendar for every district. 26 districts were there at that time. And we prepared it for from year 2005 to 2012 continuously. And for every district from 1st June to 31st October, we prepared a calendar and also give prediction based on the color code. That is, low rainfall means yellow color, green means medium rainfall, and blue means heavy rainfall, and orange color very heavy rainfall. Like that color code we have given. Also, we predicted monthly rainfall projection also. So we can combine these some techniques of ancient and modern to have a more user-friendly version. And we have to study these flood years and drought years. Some principles are mentioned, and we have to study that in more detail. We can.
Right. You mentioned about softwares and the use of technology. I was just wondering, in terms of increasing reach of the indigenous methods, of course, coupled with scientific verifiability and various aspects that you just mentioned, what are the efforts or what are the initiatives that we have taken up in terms of the deployment of technology? One, we have already discussed about how the verifiability and the various aspects of it has been looked at, but also in terms of promotion and popularization of these methods. Are we working on that front as well?
There are several administrative plus financial constraints are there. Though we wrote several proposals, but we couldn't get money out of it. But still, we are hopeful. Our suggestion is that our team was working in that. It is not my individual work, though I have done PhD in this subject. But still, on operational level, we can form a team based on the astrometeorologist, meteorologist, and agriculture scientists coming together to form a committee to prepare a calendar for every state. So we can have a calendar preparation committee. Also, some observatories we have to establish, or present observatories are there, observers are there. We give training to them, and they are taking meteorological observation. Along with that, they can take the reading of RCR signals. So we can use this. So digitization we can use. One of my friend from Pune, he has prepared one app known as Meghdut. So he digitized, or he all put up that data into mobile app, that is Meghdut, which records based on the Varahamihira's RCRD theory. So along with modern principles, we can use ancient techniques in our present context. But it needs support, because to run it properly with M, that is money, manpower, and mission.
Absolutely.
If these three are coming together, then and then only it can sustain, because it needs a we can say backing from the administrative and political wing. We have to look into this ancient science from the today's perspective. सभी जो पुराना है वो सब सोना नहीं है, लेकिन जो उसमें का सोना है वो बाहर निकालना. In Hindi, we can say like that. So we have to explore, and we have to put it in our today's scientific language. But definitely, from my study of last 30 years, I found it more useful. So we can prepare a software. Presently, there is no dedicated software to find out the planetary position. We have to depend it on one person who is looking after two, three software, and he takes the data. The interpretation, one another fellow is there who used to take all these. He sits for 7, 8 days, and he find out every district prediction. Then he gives quantitative data to me. Then I convert it into the numerical data by applying modern statistical principles that we have established that study. And then one designer is there who designed the calendar, gives color code. So it's a teamwork that we have studied, or we have given it in Gujarat state for up to 2012. But it needs support from all angles. We have to form team. We have to get some funds for that, and also we have to train the younger people, because these few people are there, but they are growing older. So we don't want to break this chain. That is, I want to suggest that 3M should be there. The project proposals are ready with us. It can be implemented for any state.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned a very important point, which is that of the ecosystem or the larger picture, essentially the political thrust or the interest in pursuits. And I believe at the moment we do have, a certain thrust that we are seeing in Indian knowledge systems, for instance, and hopefully that will kind of also push, and the impetus on this particular pursuit as well. Vidyadharji, it has been a wonderful discussion. I would like to, know from you if you have any last thoughts for our viewers before we close for today's session.
Yeah, definitely. Already 1 hour is completed, but few minutes I will take. First of all, I am thankful to the Infinity Foundation. I got to introduce with Mrityunjay ji in Hyderabad a few days back. We had some 1 hour discussion, and he invited me in Infinity Foundation talk. I used to take lectures in Bishmaya School of Indic Studies, also in GTU. Everywhere, people used to call me, and I go there and I propagate this thing. Though it is a repetition of same thing, but audience is different. So there is no as such a repetition there. So I'm very happy to see that one big foundation is looking at it in a Satya Samvad. From my heart, I'm very much thankful to the whole team and particularly Mrityunjay. Namaskar.
Thank you
If
so
there are
much.
any
It
questions,
has been
ask.
a it has been a wonderful discussion and very insightful at that. I think as we speak about the various avenues of decolonization, of reclaiming the civilizational thrust of Bharat itself, I think weather forecasting and the methods that we have discussed have to be reclaimed, have to be studied thoroughly for the principle-based approach that we mentioned about. So it has been really insightful and interesting, and we would like to again thank you, Vidyadharji, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very
We
much.
look forward to you all joining us for the next episode of Satya Samvad. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Namaskar. Shubharatri.